So we've gone a bit over our hour, but what do you say we go jump in a spaceship and have a little bit of a fly around? Even though we're not going to be in the same instance, maybe we talk about the different functions in that.
Sure, let's do it.
Cut it into a different video, maybe. The sound effects and everything are already cool. I've got to mention that. Like just I'm a big fan of the lasers. I got to say, the lasers are for mining, right?
So there's beam weapons, ammo weapons, and energy weapons, and they all have a trade-off. Okay. Like for beam, they're easier to aim, but their range is short and their energy is high. For ammo, their energy is low, but their range is really, really far. And then energy weapons are high energy, slower firing, but do a ton of damage if they hit. So you can kind of customize those. And then when you want to mine, there'll be a separate mining laser you'll have. And the mining laser will determine which types of materials you're able to mine, basically.
Okay, yeah. So going out for a certain type of material, you're going to need to customize your ship and really like get your loadout sorted out before you head out, right?
And you know, being a space sim nut, like I've tried to put in all the things I would want in space games. So like you said, the firing groups, like by default it starts each different weapon type it puts into a group, and you can have up to 3, and you can type 1, 2, 3 to switch between them fast, or you can hit tab to cycle between them. And then you know, so some of them do more damage to shields versus armor, and so you want to be like using one weapon until their shields come down, and then switch quickly to the other, and then finish them off through the armor. There's different missiles like that might affect shields or armor better, that you want to be more selective about, you know, when do you use these, not just throwing them out.
Yeah. And how do people collect those missiles? Like we don't have any of them in quite yet. How are they going to be collected?
Hold on, my sound's all messed up. All right. Sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
How are people going to be able to like collect missiles in the game? Is that something they create outside of it, or is there a way to sort of get them in missions?
In Warp Nexus, everything is it's a very economy centric game, and so everything you build requires basically finding the components and crafting it yourself, or buying and trading with other players. So when you find out about a new, there's some things you'll get for just, you know, if you finish the first mining missions, we're going to award you a mining laser so you can go out and start doing it on your own. Oh, nice. But when you want to get better and better stuff, it's all about like looking at the recipe, how's it made, what do I need to build it? Oh, I need, you know, iron and machine parts and electronics or something, let's just say, are the components. And so you can go find those yourself. You can go look on the stock market, and see which stations have those for which price. And then you can fly to different stations, collect it all, and then take all the parts to the station that builds it and build one for yourself. But no two items are exactly alike. So there's a number of statistics on an item, you know, like refire rate, energy usage, range, you know, bullet lifetime, all that kind of stuff. And so every time you craft one, you get a little bit different stats. And so even though you've made the thing, it may not be the perfect combination of stats. So you may want to keep trying until you get one that's exactly the way you like it. And then by the time you've done that, well, now you realize you want the next thing up because its potential is even higher or more specific to what it is you want to do.
Yep. Perfect. So not only just the creation of it, but the random chance of for increased power or whatever else.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the other thing about the game is it's all very player driven. So you know, you might log in one day and there's a station that's desperate for titanium, and the price it's paying is amazing, and so everybody's out mining ore to collect titanium to go, you know, get the payday. Well, by tomorrow, maybe everybody's delivered so much that now it's paying almost nothing for titanium, right? So each time you log in, you're going to have to kind of look at the market and decide for yourself, like, what makes sense for me to do today? You know, do I want to haul things from one place to another? Do I need to go out and mine? Maybe if there's not any good hauling runs, I'm just going to run escorts and protect others and get paid for doing that. So you'll be moment to moment will be sort of different choices, as to what's the best thing that day versus, other MMOs where it's like, hey, everybody's doing mission, 5, and it's always, you can do mission 5 and it always pays this, and whether the mission succeeds or fails, nothing changes in the world. Where in Warp Nexus, everything's constantly changing based on the actions of players. And, let's say you're taking a bunch of titanium, and so you bought it from one station and you're taking it to the other one that pays really high, but you get destroyed in flight. Gotcha. Well, a lot of that titanium might be lost, or perhaps pirates are picking it up and storing it for themselves. So the whole game should be constantly fluctuating. And then all of the equipment beyond just the starter level equipment, only player stations can build.
Gotcha.
So it'll be completely up to players to keep building on. And so maybe you want to specialize in engines, and another guild specializes that you're allied with specializes in weapons, and someone else is doing shields. And so you're all sort of trading with each other and at the same time kind of fighting over the resources to build those things.
It's going to be interesting to see how it all works. Like, I haven't played an economy-based game like that before. So I'm curious to see how much people cooperate intra-guild. Whether or not there are people who sort of designate themselves like a certain guild of a material. Mike
was talking about that design the other day, that he was like, not only do we need a guild system, but we need like an intra guild or extra guild system.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Right?
The right word
system is what I called it.
Yeah, because it's like it does make sense that you kind of want to have like, hey, we're gonna all, we're all specializing in something different, but if we all work together, it's even better. Or maybe you can also, likewise work against groups like, hey, the 3 of us all need this resource that this one guild is kicking our butts and taking all of, so we're all going to sort of form an alliance to go stop that guild from doing it or whatever. But it's all very player centric. We're not creating the rules or who's friends with who. It's totally up to you who you fight with or align with.
I'm so curious to see whether there's going to be some sort of mega guild that gets formed, like a conglomerate of everybody, or we get like sporadic smaller friendly guilds. It's going to be incredible to see how. Like, that's something to really look for, the human aspect of it all.
I'm sure we'll constantly be balancing the design around that. Like, if it becomes too advantageous for everyone to join in mega group, like you said, then we may want to start making some advantages for not being in a mega group and kind of, constantly be sort of playing with that.
I could see that. Yeah. Like, same sort of thing you were mentioning about the questing, where you're going to get people who are going to be out getting the daily quests or finding them or chasing the materials that are most in demand. And you're going to have people out there sort of just looking for what they need for whatever they're trying to craft. So are there going to be people who are chasing cheaper materials on cheaper days? Sure. But I can see a lot of people just going for whatever they want as well. Like, it's really going to be a fun experiment, something that there's going to be sort of case studies of, I think. People are going to be able to watch how people react and act.
I imagine myself being really driven by what's my guild working on right now. Oh, you know what? We've been building these guns, but this new one came out, and now we want to start doing that. So the first thing we need to do is expand our base, so we need to build another factory. Well, a factory takes a ton of resources. It takes thousands of titanium and electronics and robotics, and so now our guild's out collecting those, trying to get this new thing built so that we can then start building these guns. And then maybe we want to stockpile, maybe there's a rare material that's only available in some of the PvP areas of the game, and we're not good at PvP, so we're running the markets with one of the groups that is, and trading them. And so it's that kind of stuff where I kind of feel like it's going to be every day you're going to be like, oh man, but now there's this next thing we want to all work on, and you'll just constantly be, working together on whatever the current goal is.
Yeah, I can really see like the ideas where people in bigger guilds are going to be able to create like the stations and everything a lot faster. But I kind of want to see it where people can form these like the smaller brigand type guilds, where like pirate style. Where maybe they don't get to create the bases, or maybe there's a bonus to not creating base materials at all, station materials at all. But the sort of what you get in terms of being able to pilfer from other people increased by the size of, or the limitation of the bases.
One of the things I do in the because we're instanced. we don't have to worry about, space being so massive that no one ever, like pirating is tough in an open world space game because there's not really choke points, and so it's hard to know like where to set up ambushes and that kind of thing. But because we're instance, we can sort of force that. So I can pretty much assure you that if you're running a transport from A to B, you're going to get ambushed. The only question is whether it's AI or other players. And so like it's a perfectly legitimate way to play the game. Is like, if you're like, forget this crafting and mining, I'm out here to, destroy other ships and steal their goods. And so we let you, let's say you're looking for titanium as a pirate. Well, then you can sort of basically you're paying your spy network to let you know, hey, there's a run of titanium going. Do you want to go ambush it? And then you're able to go fight it. And so just like you can search for resources as a miner, you can search for them as a pirate as well.
That might be it too, where they have access to a separate market. Where maybe you exchange like player skulls for the materials you need. There's so much that you can do. It's absolutely, it stretches my imagination. Like, very cool. So one of the things I have to ask while I'm flying around here, obviously when you hit a meteor, when you're flying like a numpty, you lose shield damage. Once shields are 0, that's when you start taking health damage, right?
It's armor, basically, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And the other things that we're sort of seeing is the scanning. So the interaction with E.
Yep.
I'm going to guess that that's sort of like once you come up to an asteroid with a vein in it, you have to scan it. Yep.
Yeah, and you'll actually find like nodes along the veins that are the different materials, but you'll have to have the right kind of equipment to pick up the node, right? I mean, very Minecraft, right? Like, oh, the diamond pickaxe allows these types of mining that you can't with the wooden one or whatever, right? And so we'll have a similar sort of mining mechanic here, where the more advanced the material, the more advanced the mining equipment you need to get it.
Yeah, okay. And so what's the purpose of the scanning? Is it just locating the nodes?
Well, there's a lot of things that might happen out here in space. Like you might come across the crashed hull of an old ship.
Okay.
Maybe you want to scan that and see what's inside. Perhaps there's loot. Perhaps it's a bomb. Perhaps it's a lure and you're jumped by pirates when you go see it. Like, there's all kinds of things that can happen to you while you're out here, and you never know until you go interact with them or not. It's up to you.
Awesome. And so one of the things too that I noticed is when you're firing the beam weapons, you've got 2 main sounds. Like when you're shooting the asteroid. Let me try and find. Is the beam weapon ever going to be used for mining?
No, mining is separate.
Okay, all right. It's going to be great. Like the same sort of thing. I mean, playing like old fleet games. I can remember the old Warhammer one where you basically orcs battle barges, where the whole thing was close combat. The whole thing was just to ram the enemy ships and hit them with close combat weapons. So I can imagine the beams being a big favorite of mine.
Yeah, absolutely. Like if you have a ship with a giant hull and tons of armor, like ramming other ships is absolutely a viable attack mechanism.
Seeing okay, how many people are going to be able to be instanced in the exercise? Like in this singular asteroid field, how many ships are we going to be able to see fly around?
It's less of a technical and more of a what's the right level of fun, right? If you get, you'd be surprised, even 20 ships starts to get outrageous. And so we'll just have to figure out what the right number is. But I should mention that when you're on a mission, they're meant to be balanced. So, about the same number of pirates as escorts, that kind of a thing. And it'll try to even matchmake with similar equipment levels. Right. So you're not a new person getting destroyed by someone with, the greatest ship in the game.
Gotcha. We haven't really spoken about that yet either, like character levels versus like just ship power. Is that the sort of the way that you're going to go about it?
So basically, the system we're designing is when you level up, it's kind of like a perk system. And so each time you get a level, you gain a point you can spend.
Yeah.
And the points you can spend are things, like your shields regenerate a little bit faster, your weapons do a little more damage, that kind of stuff. So they're all like minor statistical improvements that you can sort of choose what you want, but you're really choosing order. So if you level up enough, you can eventually unlock them all.
Everything.
Like
Gotcha.
we don't want to make it like a class. It's like you're a miner and you can only ever do mining, and if you want to do combat, you need to make a new account and do that. So it's very much that you can do everything. It's more just you're choosing the order in which you do it all.
Yeah. Has there been anything about sort of profiles where you can set up like a mining talent tree and a combat talent tree? Or is it sort of like, once again, like you said, just...
Yes. So the short answer is yes.
Cool.
And it's not quite ready to show off, but it's close.
Okay, awesome. Like, I think that's the big one. Like, because I can see where certain games, like the example that comes to mind is Ragnarok Online, where if you wanted to eventually be a healer, the early levels were absolute pain just because you were so weak compared to everybody else. Like, it was like a legitimate hardcore group. Get to the point where you could at least help people after you could help yourself. So yeah, I could see where people might not want to choose certain professions because of how much more difficult it makes other aspects of the gameplay, but allowing that sort of the shifting between different decks, I guess.
Yeah, when you do the Bethesda model of like Skyrim or Fallout, where every time you level up, all the AI in the world levels too, and so if you sort of choose the wrong thing to level, then AI can become tougher, even though you didn't.
Yeah.
That's not really what we're doing. We don't adjust it to your player level. We adjust things to your power level, if that makes sense. Like, what's the sort of level of equipment and everything on your ship, and we're going to try to put stuff that's challenging but not impossible against you, and so it balances a little differently.
Yeah, you never want to get to the point really like where you're one hitting everything. That gets very boring very quickly. But same sort of thing with I remember when WoW did it, when they introduced scaling, like mobs around the world, where all of a sudden you're fighting something that should be a one shot, but it's all of a sudden like an annoyance, I guess. But having it be challenging constantly is the way to go.
Yeah, you want it to be enjoyable, right? And you want it, if it's too easy, it's boring, and if it's too hard, it's frustrating, right? And so that's the design. And again, we're not an RPG with like strength and dexterity and that kind of a thing. It's more of a shooter so there is a level of skill involved, which makes it tricky, right? Like if you're really good at space combat, the same equipment in your hands could be much better than if I'm really bad at it, right? So that's the other thing we have to kind of be careful with. It's a little different in balancing what we're doing, but still there aren't wrong choices. You can't improve something and then now you're worse because of that decision. Like, that's definitely not our game design.
Is there some way for, like, let's say that somebody's being matched with equally geared or equally powered enemies, and the game's noticing that maybe they're getting crushed every. Is there a way where the sort of internal matchmaking will be able to recognize that and sort of downscale their enemies, no matter what their equipment is?
We've talked about it. I need to see I need more data. Is the short answer. It could be the right way to do it. It could be that we do something like maybe more escort ships show up and help you fight when you battle, or right. Like, the problem is that we've tried really hard to make the flight accessible, but there's people who just 3D flight breaks their brain, and so you can play this game, like you could play Warp Nexus never flying if you wanted to. You could just send out all the stuff you're trying to build and let other players do the missions for you, or let the AI finish the missions for you. So if you really don't like the space flight part, or you just can't do it, you can still play the economy part of the game and still be a part of a guild and the rest of it. So
that's great.
Even though it is based on space combat, you don't have to do it if you don't want to.
Yeah. That's a cool idea as well. Like like the idea of a person just chilling out in the station, basically buying and swapping gear, material. Very cool.
It's the job of the hut role, right? Like you're running a group and you're financing people going out and doing things for you, and so you might see that there's a big titanium rush today, and so you could pay people to bring you titanium, and then you could then be selling that stuff off yourself on that station.
Like, is that sort of thing going to be able to be set by the person individually? Like how much they pay?
Now, missions are created three ways. Like the economy makes missions. So a station's out of titanium, and so it's going to be creating missions, asking people to bring it. Players can create missions. You could say, like, hey, I really want to build this gun, and I don't have uranium, and so I need people to bring me it, and this is what I'm willing to pay for it. Or guilds can make missions as well, which is kind of the same as players, where guilds can say, hey, we're constructing this new thing, we need a ton of whatever, and so there could be guild missions to do. And then we have what we call like world or story missions, and so whatever the sort of main story that's going on in the game at the time, you can take part in that as well. Like maybe we've detected a new species and everyone's out doing scans and research trying to lock down a new destination for the Warp Nexus portal, or maybe there's a new alien that's causing problems and we all need to work together to fight against it, or perhaps it's Shadow Company up to something, right? So there's all those kind of things that'll be sort of the world storyline that's going on. Yeah. And again, it's all player driven, and so depending on how players resolve the issue will affect where the sort of our story goes from there as well.
Okay, that seems like a whole other chat or a podcast where we can sort of talk about how you guys are sort of planning to sort of go about the way that the story evolves, like where it's kind of like a choose your own adventure. You guys can put input the ideas, but the way that the players react to it sort of would I'd wait. Yeah. So you guys have a fair bit of planning involved, where there's a lot of ideas that might not get used right now, but it might come back around. Like, I'm curious about all that. But
again, we're just starting to put some of those into reality, but that's the concept, right? Like, let's say there's a deep space outpost that's being built, and if it gets built, then we're going to learn about something that's going to allow a new material to maybe come in the game, which is going to change some recipes. But there's also an alien species that wants that same thing. And so, do we finish the outpost before they destroy it? That kind of a thing. And then if they destroy it, then perhaps now you have to visit their stations and purchase it from them, where before we could have set up the mining facility and been able to go and mine ourselves, right? Like those. So you can still have the same outcome of this new element is in the game, but how you get to it is dependent on what the players did or didn't do.
Right, yeah, okay. So, yeah, whether or not the aliens become diplomatic or you have to fight for the material. That's right. Very cool. Yeah.
Does a species, join our equivalent of the UN and it becomes a species that now players can choose to fly as, right? Or do they become an enemy of our group, and they're often the groups that might be attacking you while you're doing a mission, right?
Yeah. So I guess that automatically makes me think of, if somebody wants to change a race in the game, you guys thought about what they're going to lose, if they're going to lose anything at that point?
There's not going to be any statistics tied to the species you choose, just visual unlocks.
Gotcha.
And I think we'll let you, through gameplay, unlock all of them if you want. Yeah. Like again, we talked about, in the game you're the race, but in the metaverse it's a costume, right? And so we can mix that up, right, where you can buy other costumes, and maybe we'll have like a genetic system that allows you to change your race for a credits fee or something like that.
Okay, yeah, where it becomes more permanent.
Yeah, you can go to a species change-orama.
Go through some gene therapy. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
That'd be very cool. It has to look painful no matter which way you go about it. Yeah. All right. I mean, that's fantastic. I think people are going to love to hear about all this sort of stuff. And once again, we've gone from the arena and now I'm flying around a spaceship, and all it is a click to return back to the station. And all of a sudden, it feels like you're in a complete game again.
Yep. And now you're back in the metaverse.
Yeah. Amazing.